Willow's phone buzzed just as she was wrapping up a presentation at work. The subject line of the text nearly knocked the air out of her chest. Grandpa had a stroke. Come home now. Her vision blurred as her hands shook. She didn't even think. Papers scattered to the floor as she bolted out of the office, barely able to breathe. Grandpa was the one constant in her life. He had the steady voice who taught her integrity when others whispered shortcuts, the only person who believed in her when she doubted herself. Losing him wasn't an option. The drive home was a blur of tears, honking horns, and desperate prayers. By the time Willow burst through the door of her childhood house, her heart was thundering so hard she could barely speak. Where is he? Is he? But there was Grandpa, perfectly fine, sitting in his recliner with a crossword puzzle balanced on his knees. He looked up, startled. Willow? Honey, what are you doing here? Relief crashed over her, but confusion followed like a second wave. You a broken bar? You're fine, she whispered. Fit as I can be at my age, he said, adjusting his glasses. What's all this about the stroke? And then the phone rang. Willow picked it up before he could. On the other end, her mother's voice floated, bright and cheerful, accompanied by clinking glasses and ocean waves. Sweetheart, you made it home? We're in Cabo. Your father just ordered another round of margaritas. Isn't life funny? Anyway, don't worry, Grandpa's fine. Thought you'd need an excuse to take some time off. The line went dead, but Willow's blood ran hot. An excuse? They'd lied about her grandfather's health just to yank her back home? It was cruel, manipulative. And as she stood there, her grandfather's brow furrowed with confusion, something inside Willow snapped. Over the next few days, the cracks in the picture-perfect family portrait grew wider. Strange mail arrived. Letters from banks, some addressed to Willow's name but bearing her mother's handwriting. Grandpa's accounts showed irregular withdrawals he swore he hadn't authorized. And then, one night while rifling through the old desk drawer in the study, Willow found them, forged signatures. Dozens of them. Documents that looked official, with company letterheads and contracts assigning shares of Grandpa's small but successful business to her parents. It wasn't the stroke. It was a setup. Her parents weren't just enjoying cocktails in Cabo, they were orchestrating a betrayal worth millions. $4.2 million, to be exact, siphoned out of the company that Grandpa had spent decades building. They weren't planning to come back as loving parents. They were planning to come back as the new owners, leaving Grandpa and Willow penniless. The weight of it crushed Willow at first. She spent nights awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how two people could weaponize family like this. The little girl in her wanted to crumble, to beg her parents to stop. But Grandpa's voice echoed in her mind, stand tall, Willow. The truth always has more power than a lie, but only if you're brave enough to carry it. So she carried it. Willow contacted an attorney, pieced together the evidence, and after weeks of chasing paper trails and endless nights fueled by coffee and anger, she called someone bigger, the FBI. At first, they doubted her. Corporate embezzlement wasn't a simple thing to prove. But when she slid the forged documents across the table, signatures overlapping in her mother's careful loops, paired with financial records showing offshore accounts, the agents leaned forward. This wasn't family drama anymore. It was a crime. The hardest part came when Willow's parents returned, sun-kissed and smug, walking into Grandpa's home with wide smiles and rehearsed hugs. We've been working on something exciting, her father said, laying papers on the table like a magician about to reveal a trick, a fresh start for the family business. But this time, Willow didn't flinch. She waited until the boardroom meeting, a gathering of shareholders and partners where her parents planned to unveil their hostile takeover. They walked in dressed in power suits, confidence dripping from every gesture. They had no idea their daughter had spent the last month building a case strong enough to topple them. Willow let them talk. Let them gloat. Then, As the silence after their pitch settled over the room, she stood. Her hands no longer trembled. Her voice no longer cracked. And when the door opened and two federal agents stepped inside, the color drained from her parents' faces. "I believe you've forgotten to mention something," Willow said, sliding the evidence across the polished table. "Fraud, embezzlement, forgery. But don't worry, I thought ahead." The room erupted. Her parents stammered, pleaded, but the FBI's handcuffs clinked louder than their excuses. In the aftermath, Willow sat beside her grandfather on the porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in gold and rose, and for the first time in weeks, her chest didn't take with anger. "You were brave," Grandpa said softly, patting her hand. "I was terrified," Willow admitted. "But I couldn't let them take everything you built. Everything you taught me." He smiled, eyes glistening. "And that's why they lost, Willow. Not because of the FBI, not because of the money, but because they forgot what this family was supposed to stand for." You remembered. The betrayal cut deep, but Willow refused to let it define her. Instead, she carried forward the lesson her parents had abandoned, that real strength isn't found in power or money, it's found in courage, integrity, and the willingness to fight for what's right. And as she walked back into the company the next morning, and not as a pawn, but as a leader, she knew one thing for certain: this was just the beginning of the story she would write for herself.